Ensuring Revit Model Health with Ideate Software. We're going to be focusing today on 3 of the 5 solutions that Ideate Software creates. That's Ideate BIMLink, Ideate Explorer, and Ideate Style Manager. And again, my name is Richard Taylor. I'm coming to you today from outside of Boston, Massachusetts, where if you heard our discussions earlier, we have no power, but I'm on backup generator, so hopefully everything will go well. So Ideate Software creates 5 add-on applications for Revit that you see there on the bottom of the screen. Ideate BIMLink, Ideate Explorer, Ideate Sticky, Ideate Apps, and Ideate Style Manager. And we're all about simplifying your Revit data challenges. And one of our partners that we work with is Ideate, and that's why we're hosting this webinar. And so if you have any additional questions about any one of these 5 solutions, you can contact your account rep at Ideate, or you can also go to our website, ideatesoftware.com. So just a little bit before we begin, I always want to talk about that we're very well known for our outstanding support and reputation. We have not only the end product help, so that's the help within the actual application itself, but we have online help. We have educational videos, live classes such as this with, that are sponsored by Ideate Software, as well as sponsored by our partner, in this case, Ideate. We are supporting right now 2021, which just came out last week. We just released our first application on 2021, which is Ideate Explorer. And so over the next month, we're going to be releasing the other 4 solutions. So not everything is available yet on 2021, but it should be within the next, like I said, few weeks or month time frame. So we always support the last 4 releases of Revit. So once everything gets fully updated on Revit 2021, we'll be supporting and updating also on 2018, 19, 20. And what that means is that new features or new functionality that comes out is not only supported on Revit 2021, but it also is supported on 2018. And we have previous versions, but what we've done is we've archived those basically, or we're not making updates to them. But if you do have a project, let's say in 2015 or 2016, we do have software available. It just hasn't been updated to our latest release. And then we do a lot of comprehensive QA testing. You're going to see some slides where we work with BIM 360, and we're expanding sort of our cloud support with BIM 360 with our applications. And we're dealing with large customers and large projects all around the world. So the first solution I'd like to concentrate on is Ideate BIMLink. And really, Ideate BIMLink is probably one of our premier solutions in the sense that most people, or many people around the world, know us for Ideate BIMLink. And in this context, or this presentation, we're going to be focusing on quality assurance and quality control for both your Revit projects and the Revit families. So Ideate BIMLink is a add-on application that allows you to extract parameter data from Revit, send it to Excel, make changes or modifications, and then import that back into Revit. And sometimes for QA or QC purposes, you're just reviewing the information just to make sure that, let's say, all the work sets across 10 files are matched and the items or the elements are where they should be. So when you're comparing, let's say, different elements across linked files, sometimes it's just a review of information, maybe not so much as a change. We're going to be showing you some examples of changing and updating things as well. So one of the things that I'm really going to focus on today is the fact that BIMLink, when you open it up, or it's shipped with about 400 sample link definitions. The link definitions are kind of like a schedule. It's basically the parameters that you are telling Ideate BIMLink to extract to Excel. Which parameters or which pieces of data. And so we've created several categories of these link definitions. And you see there on my bullet points, we've got project standards, which I'm going to go into in more detail. We have quality control. And then new, this is going to be in our latest release, which is our May update, which actually might be sort of end of April. So this is not currently available. Like if you go after the webinar, you're so excited, you want to go check out the health check link. It's not in the current software, but it will be, like I said, in a few weeks. And that's why I wanted to mention it, that we're having a whole series of health check link definitions. And then, of course, you can also create customized links. You can use schedule data to build the parameters. So let's say you have a room schedule, and you wanted to extract all of the parameter data and information like the room name, the square footages, maybe the room types. You could use the schedule as a base to create that link. And of course, you can import and export and have these saved in your Revit templates as well. So the first thing I'm going to focus on is our link category called quality assurance, so QA. So there are certain Revit QA tools that we might use, right, for making sure that basically our type and style controls meet our company standards. And people do that with both, templates for their project and templates for the family files themselves, right? View templates, which can standardize how something is going to look across your project. Object styles and groups can all help control this level of type and style, really, again, how it looks. But we have a series of, as you see there, I've highlighted the project standards link, and you'll see that it goes through basically from assembly code all the way down to viewport types. So I'm going to show you some examples with view templates and the viewport types, how we can use Ideate BIMLink to ensure this quality assurance, or that these standardized sort of style controls are met. And then in addition to that, we have a number of quality control links. Now these links typically are based on instance parameters, whereas the previous QA was based primarily, not all of them, but primarily based on type-based parameters. So for quality control, think about these are things that may have already been created within your Revit project, right? That now you want to make sure that those instances are adhering to your company standards. And you can use schedules, for instance, within Revit. You might use workset visibility to control some of those elements. You can use filters. But Ideate BIMLink has a whole series of these quality control links. And again, I'm going to show you some examples of those. And they're all under the quality control folder. And then third, I wanted to mention this because it was so close to being released. As I said, it's not out yet. But in a few weeks, we're going to have a separate folder that we've added for this release, and that folder is called Health Check. So again, in Revit, you may use some tools like the warnings, the number of warnings that you have, how big is your file or your model, how long does it take to sync with Central, how long does it take to open and close the file, how many CAD files do I have. Those are all things that you might want to monitor, obviously, for the Revit health, right? But we can use Ideate BIMLink to monitor some of those very similar things, but also things like, how many views do you have, how many keynote tags, how many imports, again, number of CAD files and so forth that you might want to review. So that health check, I think, is going to be a really nice category, if you will, of links that can be used to extract information from the Revit model. Okay, I've talked long enough, so let's just take a look at this. And I'm going to switch over here to Revit. And as I mentioned, I decided that since all of our tools are not yet out on Revit 2021, that I was going to use Revit 2020 today. So all of this is shipping software, and it's all available to you if you want to go and do a trial or download the latest right now, which is for, as I said, Explorer just released. But for the other 4 solutions, the latest release was updated last November. So the way that you start any one of these applications is you go to the Ideate Software tab, and you'll see all the Ideate software on the ribbon panel. We're going to select BIMLink here, and we're in a MEP file. And when this first comes up, there are no links defined. I basically started this. I wanted to clear this out so that there weren't any predefined links, or I should say links stored in this project. So the only thing you can select is new. When you select new, you have the ability to browse and to browse to the different libraries. And here's where I was saying there's like over 400 links. So if we come down here and we want to go to our, let's say, our quality control. So here's where there are a number. They all have the prefix of QC, and MC stands for multi-category. So that's a link that has multiple categories, which we're going to see in a moment here. So if I come down here and maybe I want to select on, let's say, my device elevations, I would like to do a quality control check to make sure that all of my device elevations are at the appropriate level, right, or distance from that level. So this is an instance link. I'm going to say next. And what it does is it loads those particular link properties. It's telling me that, oh, well, you know what? You selected this as a multi-category link: communication devices, data devices, nurse call devices, security devices, and so forth. So this is the category. When I click over here to properties, these are the properties that are going to be exported. So I'm just going to leave this, like I said, directly out of the box. I'm not going to change any of these properties for now. I'll come back and show you how we can do some of that in a bit. I'm just going to select Done, Export, and I'm going to give it a name. Actually, you see that I've already sort of exported it. I'm just going to overwrite the one that I have there, right? And then once I export that information to Excel, I'm going to say Open File. And here's where it shows me the information. So every column, as you see here, column A is the Revit element ID. Column B, in this case, is family and type. C is the level name. So if I switch back over here to BIMLink, when I went to the properties, there's a one-to-one relationship. It goes, kind of top to bottom, family name, family and type, name, coordinate, mark, space number. The same thing over here, coordinate, mark, space number. It's just left to right. Now, everything that's in white is available to me to be edited or changed. Everything that's in gray is not editable. And there are several reasons why something may not be editable. It may be a type-based property, which we separate that. We create a separate link definition for type-based parameters. So these are instance-based parameters that are editable and are applicable. So this one here, like if you look on column I, there's some gray diagonal. It just means that that particular offset is not applicable for this particular family and type. So a couple things here on this where there's no mark filled out. So I might want to come over here and just say that I'm going to say 100, and the next one's going to be 101, something real simple. And I'll just highlight on those two, and I'll use Excel, and I'll just drag this all the way down. And this allows me to number the devices with a mark sequentially. And then as part of the QC process, basically I say, well, you know what? The elevation really should be at 1500 for all of these. This is millimeters. So I'm going to select on 1500, and then I'm going to go and say, every one of these is now going to be at 1500. So I'm just going to, again, drag this all the way down and update that. So what I've done there is I've selected, you saw, updated a mark and updated an elevation. Now I do have to save this information, and then we'll switch back over here to Revit and BIMLink. So now I'm going to select on the link, and instead of exporting it like I did earlier, I'm now going to do the reverse, and I'm going to import. And so I'm going to import from those device elevations, and I'm going to say Open. And then what BIMLink does is it gives me a great sort of summary of all the changes. So everything up above here, it's basically in yellow. It says these items, this data has been updated. And you'll see over here down below, it also tells me that there were Revit properties that were changed. So now I can import that, and I can make that change. Now, sometimes it's kind of hard to see in this case where there's a lot of little device elevations that they actually were. In fact, you can see here, if I go to the device elevation, it is at 1500. But if I want to grab something, for instance, like one of this, let's say this lighting switch single pole, I can do this by the element ID as well. Come over here and go to my Manage tab. And if I did want to grab something like that, I do that quite a bit and just say, Show and OK. And it will actually grab that sensor, or in this case, I'm sorry, the lighting switch single pole, and the fact that it is at 1500, right? So you can verify that not only was that data changed, but in fact the elevation offset was changed because that was a driving factor of where that geometry was placed. So another thing we might want to do here is switch over here to I've got a different project. This is more of an architectural focused project, right? And let's come on back over here to BIMLink. And again, in this particular project, I kind of cleared out all the links. So right in this case, we don't have any that are defined yet. I'm going to select New here. And again, here's both my project standards and quality control. If I go down to my project standards, right? And as I said, most of these are type-based links, but not all of them. Like in this case, the dimensions these are the types of dimensions I'm using in this particular project. These are the type of text styles I'm using in this project. I like to show this one, even though it is more of an instance, but it's like view templates. So in this case, it is an instance link. If I come over here and say next, what I'm going to look at is here are all the view templates, and you see the properties associated with those view templates, right? Whether they've got the detail level included, and if you've reviewing the view template information within Revit, you see all of these are items that you can have or not have or be defined within the view template. So in this case, I'm going to make a very small change. And sometimes when you make a small change, it's easier actually to do it within the BIMLink dialog itself. So in this case, the detail level, I can come right over here and I can change it from coarse to fine. So in the architectural plan, it's going to have a fine level of detail. So all of this is a dynamic dialog, meaning that if I change something, for instance, if I untick the view scale or something, that's going to change it for that particular architectural plan. And I'm going to say done here. That makes the update to it. Now we're going to come over here and say, over here, new, and we're going to switch over to my QC. And in this case, we've got if I scroll down here a little bit, we've got our views, and we've got different types of, there's view naming, interior audit, title on sheet. This one I like because the views compare. It basically has a little summary here, and it says, compare critical view properties across multiple views to find the differences. And again, this is an instance link, so I'm going to say next. All right. And in this case, I'm going to say, you know what? I'm going to have this information, but instead of all the views, maybe I'm only going to be focusing on the plan views. That will help me kind of narrow down this list. So I'm going to come over here to the filter, and I'm going to say the property where the family and type, and notice that I have all of these sort of operators. Contains, is greater than, does not contain, is not greater. I'm just going to say contains plans. And you'll notice I only get the ceiling plans, floor plans, and so forth. And again, these are the properties. You notice I have the view template and the family and type and the view name and so forth. So what I'm going to do is say done here, and I'll export this as well to the view name and compare. And I'll overwrite that, and I'll just go ahead and open that up. So there you can see we have the view template on column B. We have the view name, so I could update the view names here if I wanted to. For instance, let's just go ahead and first set for all of my floor plans. I want to come over here and I want to set this to be architectural plan. Oh, and by the way, one thing I forgot to mention is the reason that gives me a pull down list is if I come back over here and look at the properties and go to the link, there was a little tick mark here that said export with drop down values. That means if there is something like a view template, or maybe a room type, or a work set, things where you're going to have a selection, right, to pick from, that will automatically export the information from Revit. So in this case, not only did I export the view information, but I exported all the view template information as well. So that gave me the opportunity over here back on Excel, right, to be able to use that drop down to pick from the list of available. So I'm not having to remember how to spell it correctly. I'm not having, it's very easy to make a mistake. So now I'm going to do a Control C there, and we'll come back over here, and I'm just going to do for the floor plans. do a Control V, and I'll set all those to architectural plan, right? There's this first floor equipment furniture plan, and I could do a little formula here if I wanted to, but in this case, I might just add the RT or something, add some other name. I mean, if I wanted to update the name, and say save. Now back over here, I'm going to import, and we'll say the views compare. And so now it's going to tell me all the changes that were made. So basically, it set the architectural plan, right? And it actually changed the name of this first floor equipment and furniture plan. And it showed me all down below all the information that it updated. So if I come over here and I say, well, you know what, that looks good, I'm going to import that. So now we'll go over to the project browser and notice that I have this RT now, first floor equipment and furniture plan, because I appended the initials RT in front of it. I'm going to open that up, right? I'm going to go over here to the properties, and under the properties of the view, you'll see that it has architectural plan. And not only does it have architectural plan, but you'll see that the view detail level, which we changed, it was coarse, set for architectural plan, had a coarse setting. It is now set to fine, because in the with BIMLink, I changed that particular property to have the architectural plan be a fine level of detail. So just a couple things about using Ideate BIMLink to extract information, keeping your standards and set or standards the way that you want them, all the visual standards, and even element standards in this case of elevations or other types of geometry where you may want to have a review and be at a certain distance, and then be able to import that and make those changes. So Ideate BIMLink not only gives you access, and very quick access, to this QC and QA type of links, but it's giving you access to a lot of other additional data. So we've added parameters that are not available in base Revit. And some of those parameters are things like curtain wall panels that are flipped or mirrored. So we have face mirrored, so we can say whether it's mirrored left or right or back and forth. We have parameters for whether a status is pinned or not, or whether an element, I should say, is pinned. Other parameters might be overridden dimensions, in-place families. So we've added a lot of additional parameters beyond the sort of system parameters that you have within Revit. And then you can also use shared parameters that you select or create on your own and be able to export to Excel and fill those out very easily as well. And then, as I said at the top of the hour, we're always kind of expanding our repertoire when it comes to availability with BIM 360. So we're able to export that, the Excel files that you saw me create, export that directly to BIM 360 using the desktop connector. So again, that's just a quick kind of overview. Hopefully it gave you some tidbits of information about that we have those links already defined for QC, QA, and then coming soon, the health check links. So let's move on to our next application called Ideate Explorer. And Ideate Explorer is all about Revit model auditing and cleanup. So again, it's also helping you do these sort of QA, QC type of processes, or really cleaning up your project or your model. So Ideate Explorer allows you to audit your Revit models with certainty. And Ideate Explorer is a model browser as opposed to a project browser. So what I mean by that is a model browser is showing you every single element within the Revit project. So like, let's just say you have a project that has a number of different windows, right? Window types. Maybe you have 100 window types loaded in your project, and those are all shown in your family in the project browser. That doesn't mean you've used all of those windows, right? Whereas Ideate Explorer is going to show you just those windows that you've used and in each individual instance, and then you're able to manipulate and modify those things based on that. And not only does it show you elements by category, family, and type, but we can dig a little bit deeper with our Ideate query and search on any Revit parameter. So a parameter might be a dimension is overridden, or maybe even the thickness of a wall, or materials that are within a wall. And then we also have a warnings manager. So that was one of the things I talked about. You saw at the one of our first slides was, with Revit, we want to make sure that we're maintaining a low count of warnings, because that's really critical to the model health, right? So we're giving you now this dynamic interaction with warnings, enabling you to review, color code them, actually rank them high, medium, or low, and then also be able to fix them. So again, let's take a look at all this information. So if I switch back over here to Revit, I'm going to use the same project here that we've been in. I'll just go to a 3D audit view here. And so, we started over here previously working with BIMLink. I'm just going to move over here and type or click on Ideate Explorer. So when Ideate Explorer first starts, it's going to show you either elements in this case, you can say the active view. So I've got 4,000 elements that it's showing in this 3D view, or I can switch to the entire project. And I'm showing elements by default by category, family, and type, right? And so now I've got 36,000 elements. But I can also decide to sort by the level. So if I come over here and say level, it's going to show me things that are on like the top of footing level, the first floor, the bearing. And this is a great way, again, for me to do some sort of quality control, because I can quickly see that there's a door on the top of footing level where it shouldn't be. And then I can go and say, well, you know what? Let's go and double click on that to find out where that is. And in fact, it zooms right there. And in this case, I've got some transparency turned on, so it's easy to see the door. But when you select an element here, what's nice is you can come over and you can select on the 3D section view. And so basically what that does is just says, okay, I'm just going to highlight that element of the door. You can see that, oh, well, that's the problem, right? That that it shouldn't have been on the top of footing level there. If we come over here, it should have actually been on, let's say, level 1 or first floor. So I'm going to move that up to the first floor right there. And then that's set. Then I can come back to the view here and then turn off the section box, and then I'll see everything else. So I can really review information not only by like family, category, and type, but by level or by work set or by space, zone. You see there's a number of different elements here. I'm going to switch back to category here. And not only can I sort elements by category, I have this nifty little filter. And this filter allows me to use any predefined filter that I have in Revit, but we also have these ones with a little sort of marker here, is the fact that they're built in. Ideate Audit. That's going to show me things that for the health of the model, I should be reviewing on a sort of daily basis, right, for all these items, because they can start to get out of hand. So the first one you might see here is CAD imports. The project browser doesn't show you any of this stuff. So I'm going to come over here to CAD imports. I've got 173. And you can see all the different CAD files, AutoCAD files in this case, that I have. And I look at this one that has doors, and there's 2 instances of this, this AutoCAD file, which seems a little strange to me. If I double click on the first instance, it opens up the view, and you actually see here in the tab view, it says door details. So that makes sense, right? It's an AutoCAD file, and it's being used in the door details drafting view. Well, let's check out this second one here. Double click. Well, and Ideate Explorer is telling me that it's hidden. So it says, oh, well, it's hidden. I would like to turn it on temporarily. So it's going to automatically go and turn on Reveal Hidden Element mode. And it's going to zoom in to there's the CAD file. And then I look at this, and in fact, if I come down here, you can see, oh, it's in the site plan. Well, obviously, that is an error. That should not have been in the site plan. So now I can click on the element here, and I can actually remove it right from Explorer. Notice it says, oh, you're going to delete one CAD import. Is that what you really want to do? Well, yes, I do. And so now, back in the CAD imports, I only have the one instance of that door detail. So let's go ahead and turn off the Reveal Hidden Elements. And let's go ahead and fit that site plan view. And again, now that you know that there are no hidden CAD files there. So you can use this forensically to really understand how these CAD files, where they are and where they're being used. Another great tool here to review the health is dimensions, right? I've got 1,321 and I can expand on the different dimensions. I can select all of them. And in this particular case, I want to show you query. So I've selected all 1,321 dimensions. But now I might want to look for a suffix or a prefix or maybe a value that I talked about that we've included called value override. So out of all 1,321 dimensions, are there any dimensions that are being overridden? Well, in fact, there are. There's one here that's been set to 48-inch max. I'm going to select that. It builds the selection list, and then with Explorer, you can just double-click to open up that, and you can see that it's highlighted right there. So there's the dimension. If I double-click, you can see that it has been overridden with a replace with text 48-inch max. I really want to use the actual value instead, so I'm now not overriding that particular dimension. Now I have no dimensions in my project that have been overridden. So again, it's a great way for me to review that information very easily and quickly. And then also you'll see here, like you've got other things like groups and legends and lines is a good one. 17,640 lines. Most of these are detail lines in the project. So I'm going to expand on detail lines, and I see that I have a lot of weird line styles. Again, probably from all those CAD imports that I had. So in this case, I'm going to select this line 7-809, 51, 49, 48, 47, maybe 0. So I've got 487 selected. I can just go over here to my line styles, and I can say, you know what, those should have all been a detail fine. And now I'm moving all of those over to the a detail fine line style. And if you're in a drafting view in Revit, if you've ever tried this on your own where you click on a line style and you say try to select all either in the view or the project, it just doesn't allow you to. So this is a great way to be able to find all the different lines. And now you see that when I expand that again, the detail lines, they are no longer there because there are no instances that are using that particular line style. And the same can be true with text notes, which is really important. So you can kind of, again, look at the model and the health and audit and make sure that things are where they're supposed to be and matching your standards. Now you also see here, if I go ahead and deselect this for a second, I've been in this Explore tab exclusively. We also have a Navigate tab where I can quickly navigate to Sheets and Views. So if I want to go to Sheets, or actually let's go to Views here. Views that are on a sheet, I can go to a floor plan view and I can say, well, you know what, I want to go to that enlarged toilet plan. I can double click, which goes to the view. Let's go ahead and fit that. Get the right one here. Oh, there we are. And then I can also say, you know what, show me open up the sheet where that view is contained. So now I have this sheet that has multiple enlarged toilet plan views as well as some elevations. So this Navigate is a great way for me to quickly navigate to views, sheets, schedules, and legends. And then for those of you that are very astute, you probably notice there's a third panel here, or tab, called Warnings. So I have a number of warnings that are in this project. In fact, I have 244 that I've color-coded as high-ranked warnings, medium, or low-ranked warnings. So the first thing is this highlighted floors overlap. I can expand on this, and I can double-click on this 6-inch concrete instance, right, which shows it to me in the best view right here. I can do it again over here, and it highlights. It's kind of hard for me to see where the conflict might be. So what I'm going to do is just a Revit command. I'm going to highlight these two floors. I'm going to come over here to my sunglasses and say I want to isolate those categories. So just show me the floors. So now when I do that, I can pretty easily see where the problem is, right? And so I can click on one of the floors and edit the boundaries. So I'm just using standard Revit commands. And you'll notice that I can work interactively in Revit while I have the dialog open here. That's something you just can't do with the Revit warnings. You can't resize it. You can't work interactively. You have to close it. So it's really clunky when it comes to that. So now I've modified the floor sketch. I'm going to say OK. We'll say don't attach. And notice that warning now goes away because I have fixed that particular warning. And then I can come back here and reset my temporary hide isolate. Then there's another warning here that says, oh, well, there are duplicate identical instances in the same location. This is one where we've done a quick fix to, where I've been able to say, well, you know what? There are two elements that are on top of one another. Do I want to retain the originals or retain the latest? Well, maybe the latest was a mistake. They just got duplicated. So therefore, I'm going to say, let's say retain originals was what I really wanted there. Sorry, retain originals. And so the duplicates you're removing. So it says, oh, right now you're going to delete 64 curtain wall mullions and 11 pieces of furniture as well. So I'm going to go ahead and select delete. And now all of those have been removed, and I have no high-ranked warnings. In fact, there was 2 alert icons here. The alert icon looks like a little bomb going off. The one basically said that I had high-ranked warnings within my project. The second one says I'm still over my threshold. The threshold is, right now I have 168 warnings. If I go to my settings here, I have said I am allowing 100 warnings per 100 megabyte file. So that only allows me 47 warnings based on this particular setting, right? And I'm well beyond that. So what I can do is a couple things. I can change that setting, or I can come over here like this 96 lines in Sketch are slightly off axis, and I can basically say, you know what, I want to hide that. When I hide it, it doesn't count for my warning or in my warning list. So now I'm down to 72. So if I say highlighted walls are attached, maybe do that, I hide that as well. And now I'm down to 41. And that was below my threshold. So I hid those 2 warnings, and now my threshold was, what, 47, I think, right? If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 47. So that threshold now was below what I had defined. And you can see that you can create your own rankings, and you can rank elements, or I should say warnings, by the color, whether they're high ranked based on your particular standards, they're medium or ranked, or they're low ranked, again, based on your standards. You could share that with everyone on your team. That can be in a centralized location, and you can see that I can export and import those standards for those particular ranking files that we say. So that's really nice to be able to have a common ranking file for everyone in the project or everyone in the firm that's using this. So really easy to be able to manipulate and fix these warnings, because it's so important. If warnings get out of hand, like I said, they can impact the model performance. They could potentially even cause much longer sync to central times. It could cause sometimes corruption. There's a number of problems that warnings can sort of fester into. So it's very good that you want to have a handle on them and be sure that you've got a low number of warnings or something below your threshold that you've defined. So again, Ideate Explorer is allowing you to look at warnings, allowing you to navigate very easily to any open, or I shouldn't, any views, schedules, or legends, and then being able to explore individual elements. And again, with that filter using Ideate Audit, you can look at just those elements that might be really important to review. So it's auditing your Revit model and ensuring the health of the Revit model. So let's take a look. And lastly, but not least, is our third sort of tool that helps you ensure Revit model health, and that's called Ideate Style Manager. And Style Manager was just introduced last summer, and it allows you quality control for Revit projects and your families and templates. So where you saw with Ideate Explorer, where I was able to sort of audit elements that have already been placed and sort of fix them, like all the line styles, right? And fix where things were located. Style Manager is really allowing you to sort of fix it before it becomes a problem, being able to understand where these elements are being used in a project, and then being able to modify them or delete them or reduce them to the styles that you want. So, you know, again, we're calling all these different styles, but basically Ideate Style Manager is really 9 tools in one, And you'll see that we're going to go through and show you some examples of the 9 different tools for line patterns, for fill patterns, for materials, for object styles, for filters. We've kind of lumped those all together as these are all styles that you want to maintain standards with in your project. So many of these things, as you're probably very well aware, you can just go and delete. For instance, if you've got a subcategory that you defined, like in this case, clearance, you can just delete that. Revit lets you do it, but you have no idea the impact of what you just did. What happens is that clearance 1, that is a light gray, RGB 160, ends up becoming assigned to the parent, in this case, plumbing fixtures. So it's going to be now a projection of 1, a line color black, and a solid fill line. That may not be what you wanted. All of a sudden, your drawings change, and you didn't realize why, because you deleted the clearance subcategory. So it's really important to understand how these things are being used or where they're being used, right? So let's just take a look at Ideate Style Manager, kind of a brief overview. So again, I'm going to go back. I'll close my Ideate Explorer here. And along our lines, we started with BIMLink. Just to give you a recap, we moved over here to Explorer, and now I'm going to skip over Sticky for this presentation, but move over here to Style Manager. So I'm going to select on Style Manager, and as I said, the 9 tools giving you the ability to review object styles, line patterns, materials, material appearance assets, filters, view templates, and scope boxes. And they all work essentially the same. There are some minor differences between them, but when you see how one works, you can kind of see how all of them work. So I'm going to click on Fill Patterns here. It's showing me all the fill patterns that are in this project, right? So as you see, there's a lot of them. So in order to focus on what I want to review, I might want to use the search dialog, and I'm going to look at just sand. So when I type in sand, it gives me 4 patterns that have been defined for sand, right? Sand dense, sand drafting, sand small. The question mark over here basically says that those have not yet been analyzed. So if we were to go through and say, when we first bring up Style Manager, and we were to analyze the thousands and thousands of object styles and line patterns and fill patterns, it would take a long time to do that. So what we've done is we start out where things are not analyzed, and then I can highlight what I want. So I'm going to shift, using this shift select, and I'm going to select on all 4 of these patterns. Then I come down here and I'm going to say analyze. So what this is now doing is reviewing each of those fill patterns and then telling me where they're used. They could be used in families, they could be used in materials, they could be used in element types. And for instance, things like with object styles, as a good example, they may be used in, again, multiple different types of views or areas. So you can see here, like in this case, there were some families, this furniture, table, dining. That seems sort of strange that that's using sand, but materials, some finishes, some elements. In this case, this was a detail item that was used, this carpet revised that used this fill pattern. Now, there's one here, sand small, drafting. It looks like it's actually a duplicate of sand. That's what the colors mean. Okay? So first off, it's not even being used by any element within Revit. So I can delete this, and I know I have complete confidence that I'm not ruining something or changing the look of something downstream, because that in the project was not even being used. So there are now 3 different sand patterns. There's the sand drafting, there's the sand dense drafting, right? And maybe I want to take this one, sand dense drafting. I like to show this just because it has multiple items. There's families, there's materials, right? And there's also the element types. So there's some detail items that are using sand dense drafting. I would like to merge that to sand. I'd like to merge them together because for me, they're basically the same. So now I click on merge. It's going to give me the available styles. I can type in sand to limit that. So this is what I'm seeing, right? The AR sand, sand dense is what I just selected. But I want to merge that into sand, right? So I want to take the 13 that were in sand-dense and merge them over to sand. and say merge. And so what this is doing in the background is quite a bit. It's actually opening up the family in the project. So it's not saving it out to disk, but it's opening it up in the project. It's making the change to that family, and then it's saving it back in the project. It's opening up the detail items. And so this little overview, I love the fact that it gives you this nice quick overview. So it actually said, you know what? I opened two families, a curtain wall panel, operable panel, and a sliding panel, where the fill pattern was renamed to sand or updated. The material finishes were all updated, they were replaced. The element types were updated, and the parameter was set. So it gives you a nice overview of all of these changes. So then I come back over here, and now this one, if I double click and analyze, it's going to have a higher element count because it has now, I merged those two together basically. So it has to go out and again look and see where all those are being used. And you'll see at the top here there are tick marks to say things like show me fill patterns that have not yet been analyzed, or show me items that are used. There are built-in ones that, built-in categories or items like for line patterns or line styles that we're not able to delete because they're built into Revit. And so you just can't delete those items. So I could say, well, just don't show me the built-in items. In this case, these were obviously created by the user. So you'll notice that there's, the sand, you see the materials that it's being used in now, and there's only one. So we have one pattern that I've merged that is my sand drafting. This one I kept this AR-sand, which is fine. But I deleted one, and I took one, and I merged them together to give me a nice update and a clean style that I'm using forward on these elements. So that's kind of an overview. Again, this sort of a quick look on Ideate Style Manager. So you saw like the risk assessment. Okay, what will happen if I remove this line style, right? If I try to analyze and find, as you see, like that line style in the image here, it's being used in different view templates and different views with different elements. So the risk assessment is, what's great is you understand where it's being used. And then you saw I was able to merge, so you can fix it and standardize. So maybe my standard style was that sand. And in the case of sometimes you're copying and pasting between projects, you're copying and pasting even as link files and so forth, you can get lots of non-standard styles very quickly that don't match what your company wants, especially if you're getting information from third-party vendors. So this is a great way to be able to merge and clean that up. And this, I thought this was kind of nice. This is just a little video, but it shows you how the fact that I can go over here to look at the material, right, within Revit in this case, and I can just delete the material. Revit allows me to delete it. And then you see over here on the left-hand side, it just removes, it doesn't tell you the fact of, hey, you just deleted this material, you may not want to do it, it's being used. But now with Style Manager, we can do the same thing where we can review that material, this concrete, right? And we can actually see where it's being used and decide if it's important. And you can organize, that's one of the things I forgot, on the top there, the columns, if you click on the column header, it will sort it based on the highest number, or you can reverse the order to the lowest number. So there you can see that cast in place, or cast in situ was being used and where it's being used, and you can actually drill down directly from some additional information. You can edit the type and see that it's actually now within that layered system. And then decide whether you want to, like I said, review it or make changes or delete it, which is really nice. So in this case, we're going back into that cast in place situ, and we're going to merge it with another one because we have a couple there. As you see, we have, it was called cast in place situ, and then there was another one that was actually all written out. And so we wanted to merge those two together. And just like you saw me do earlier, it gives you a nice result of the elements that have been, the parameters have been set, and it's been merged with that new material, which in this case we said was cast in situ, as opposed to the other one, which was more spelled out. So again, allows you to really review imports like CAD data So in many cases, you'll see you can use Ideate Explorer, as you saw me do, and remove the CAD file, right? Which is great. But then you go to your object styles, or you go to your visibility settings, and you see all this other stuff there under imported objects. And you're like, hey, I removed the CAD file. Why do I have this stuff? Well, it's because you might have exploded some of the details or of one of the CAD files, and now they're under these imported object styles. So you can really review, again, to see if they're being used, or maybe move them over to standardized Revit styles before deleting all of them. And so the idea is, don't just hope for the best. This is giving you the forensic tools to really understand each one of these styles, where they're used and how they're used, so that you can make intelligent decisions about whether you want to delete it or whether you want to merge the styles for your standards.